everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Lorenzo Walker from Com250, and I'll be here to talk about suicide and suicide prevention, how Mississippi fits into that specifically, and the resources you could find to aid in suicide prevention as far as being local in Columbus, Mississippi to statewide as a whole. So, just a little information about how suicide has affected Mississippi. In 2017, 447 Mississippians, including 55 under the age of 25 years old, took their own lives. It's basically more than one person a day. Suicide is now the third leading cause of death among adolescents and young adults ages 10 to 24 in Mississippi. 54% of suicide deaths occurring in Mississippi were from the age range of 25 years old to 54 years old. It just goes to show that suicide can affect a vast array of people, no matter the age. And in reality, that's too many people to have taken their own lives because of that public health issue. And it's just sad to hear these days. The risk factors and warnings for suicide can be a range of many things as far as family history of suicide, family history of child maltreatment, previous suicide attempts, history of mental illness, particularly clinical depression, feelings of hopelessness, impulsive or aggressive tendencies, local epidemics of suicide, isolation, or a similar feeling of being cut off from other people, barriers to accessing mental health treatment, loss, whether it be financial, relational, social, or work related, physical illness, easy access to lethal means, and the unwillingness to seek help because of the stigma attached to mental health and substance abuse disorders and suicidal thoughts. These factors can definitely play a part in a person who is on the verge or is on the track to making suicide their end goal. And some of these factors can definitely play a part. It's some of them are common, in fact, as far as people, some people having a history of mental illness, especially clinical depression, feelings of hopelessness from that, um, having a feeling of isolation from people, not getting along with others, or just not participating, having an unwillingness to seek help, and just being affected by loss and not even being able to seek help as a whole as far as mental health treatment, as far as getting counseling, therapy, and anything related to that. The protective factors for suicide that could prevent those specific risks can be effective clinical care for mental, physical, and substance use disorders, easy access to a variety of clinical interventions and support for health seeking, especially family and community support, support from ongoing medical and mental health care relationships, skills in problem solving, conflict resolution, and nonviolent ways of handling disputes, and cultural and religious beliefs that discourage suicide and support instincts for self preservation. Effective clinical care for mental, physical, and substance use disorders can have quite the impact on helping those who are being affected by the thoughts that comes with going towards wanting to commit suicide. Um, Family and community support can also bring a great impact to preventing such a thing from happening. Because if you have support from your family and friends, then it can definitely help in helping you not feeling alone, like you're the only person in the world who is being affected by all these things happening in their lives, as far as loss and feelings of hopelessness and whatnot. Support can definitely help in the endeavor of wanting to become better and pushing through what life throws at you. The warnings of suicide can come from people talking about being a burden to others, feeling trapped, experiencing unbearable pain, having no reason to live, and even talking about killing themselves. Whether they're serious about it or not, it's concerning to hear people talk about that. And when they do, you have to raise an eyebrow and wonder if they're going through something. And if so, you should help them, because talking about those things, joking about those things, it cause it brings awareness to what they're feeling, and brings questions that could go along the lines of, like, why are they saying these things? Why are they thinking these things? Are they okay? Should I check on them? Should I talk to them about it? That's definitely one way to help in preventing things like that from happening. Things like that to go that way into committing suicide and whatnot. Having that support early on could make a great deal to them if they accept that support. People who consider suicide often display one or more of the following moods. First one being depression, loss of interest, rage, irritability, humiliation, and anxiety. Depression and anxiety could very well be the main two moods that can display a warning without anything having to be said. If you see somebody in the mood such as that, it's concerning, and if you do see that, you should talk to them about it. Make sure that they're okay. Make sure to be there for them in order to prevent more harm from happening, if any has even happened, to cause them to feel that way, to display those moods. The behavior that you could find in people who display warnings of wanting to commit suicide can be the increased use of alcohol or drugs, looking for a way to kill themselves, such as searching online for materials or means, acting recklessly, withdrawing from activities, isolating from family and friends, sleeping too much or too little, visiting or calling police to say goodbye, giving away prized possessions, and aggression. So, one assessment of Mississippi goes back to the numbers from 2017, having 447 suicide deaths in Mississippi. Of those suicides, 80% were males. Excuse me. 54% were persons between 25 to 54 years old of age, and 66% involved firearms. In the youth, suicide is the third leading cause of death in Mississippi teens, with 506 deaths between 2008 to 2017. In 2017 specifically, 62 Mississippians of the 447 mentioned were under the age of 25 died by suicide, which represents 14% of all suicide deaths in the state. Of those, 56% involved firearms and 40% involved hanging, strangulation, or suffocation. In adults, suicide is the fourth leading cause of death for Mississippians ages 25 to 34 and is the fifth leading cause of death for ages 35 to 44. In 2017, 299 Mississippians between the age of 25 to 64 died by suicide, which represents 67% of all suicide deaths in the state. Of those, 62% involved firearms, 22% involved hanging, strangulation, or suffocation, and 12 involved poisoning. In older adults, 86 people ages 65 and older in Mississippi died by suicide, which represents 19% of all suicide deaths in 2017. Of those, 92% involved firearms and 3% involved hanging, strangulation, or suffocation. In the military, from 2006 to 2016, 680 active duty military personnel in Mississippi died by suicide. In 2016, the national rate of suicide per 100,000 by branch were reported as follows: Navy having 15%, Air Force having 19%, the Marines having 21%, and the Army having 26%. The goals to combat suicide goes as follows as far as engaging and empowering Mississippians to help prevent suicide by increasing awareness of suicide as a public health crisis and knowledge of prevention efforts. The second goal would be to promote identification, intervention, and care for people at risk for suicide, utilizing evidence based and best practices to improve clinical and community prevention services. The third goal would be to develop postvention services to care for and support individuals affected by suicide death and attempts to promote healing and implement community strategies to help prevent further suicides. There are many programs, partnerships, and activities that were made to combat mental illness and also in the specifics of combating suicide. One of those very well known programs is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, where you call 1 800 273 8255 and you talk to someone as far as what you're thinking, how you're feeling, your emotions, and just seeking help as far as doing that. Um, it's a 24/7 program that provides coverage to individuals in need of crisis support or emergency care. Specifically, the Mississippi Department of Mental Health was approached by National Suicide Prevention Lifeline to become a network provider due to the fact that only 7 counties in Mississippi were being covered by a provider in Mississippi. Before the Department of Mental Health was selected as a network provider, calls from other countries were sent to call centers in other states. Now that that's been fixed or remedied, you can call the 1 800 273 8255 number and seek help and receive said help through call centers in Mississippi as well as still from other states, since it's a national suicide prevention lifeline. It's not just for Mississippi alone, it's for the whole nation as far as the U.S. goes. Specifically in Mississippi, or rather Columbus, Mississippi, there's another contact helpline that you can call in order to receive help as far as needing to talk about the problems you're going through, the feelings you're having, the thoughts that are coming across your mind that are pushing you to try and end your life. And that's the contact helpline that's led by United Way in Columbus, Mississippi. The number is 662-328-0200, and it basically functions the same way as calling 1-800-273-8255 as far as it being a helpline for people who are seeking that help and need that help at that time. Other programs that can be mentioned could be Shatter the Silence, which was a program that's developed by the Department of Mental Health as a presentation and target specific groups that included youths, adults, or older adults, law enforcement, military, faith-based, and correctional officers. The presentation provided information on mental health awareness, risk factors, and warning signs associated with suicide, and how to help a person who's thinking about suicide. In the fall of this year, Department of Mental Health held a train to trainer session to train the community mental health center co-occurring disorder specialists to present Shatter the Silence. It's available. It was available to promote the Shatter the Silence campaign throughout their respective catchment areas to all target audiences, including schools, churches, Mississippi Department of Corrections, National Guard Yellow Ribbon events, local law enforcement, and local community organizations. I Got You Healthy Lifestyle Choices for Teens is also another program, specifically a health outreach program developed by the Central Mississippi Residential Center in partnership with area schools, local law enforcement, Mississippi State University Extension Service, Carol Arts Domestic Violence Shelter, Department of Mental Health, and Attorney General's Office in Mississippi. The National Registry of Evidence-Based Programs Practices have given IGU an evidence rating of promising, meaning that the evaluation data has produced sufficient evidence of a favorable effect. It's a program that teaches students how to cope with challenging situations, why it's important to seek help, and the resources that are available to get help. It's been shown that in the schools that have participated in IGU or I Got You have observed an improvement in academic performance and an increase in coping skills as well as a decrease in office related referrals. As far as gathering more information for that specific program, you can contact the Central Mississippi Residential Center at 601-683-4210. As a person, what you can do to help in suicide prevention can range from many a thing. One thing is to remain aware of suicide warning signs and to not be hesitant to recommend mental health services to a family, friend, or colleague who exhibits those specific signs. You could also consider the resources in your community that could be enlisted in suicide prevention. Resources that includes faith communities, workplaces, schools, parent-teacher associations, clinics, local support groups, and other community organizations. You could also resist the efforts to stigmatize mental health conditions and suicide. It's as simple as comparing seeking help to having a physical health problem. You don't hesitate when you have something wrong with you as far as being sick, having a cold and whatnot. So why should that be any different with seeking help for a mental health problem? It shouldn't be different whatsoever. If you have trained in suicide prevention, you can spread the word about the value of such training and how it helps. And if you haven't been trained in suicide prevention, you can contact the Mississippi Department of Mental Health to learn about training options available in your area by calling 1-877-210-8513 or visiting dmh.ms.gov. If you're someone you know needs help as far as having trouble with their day to day lives and feeling burdened by the problems that are occurring in their lives, and you noticing that they're depressed or having anxiety or staying to themselves and not acting how they usually do, you can urge them to call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. It makes much of a difference to call that number to talk about your feelings, talk about how you're feeling, talk about what's bothering you, and to to seek that help in order to feel better when those things are bothering you. Specifically, you can call the contact helpline in Columbus, Mississippi as well. That's led by United Way by calling 662-328-0200. They would they will provide the same assistance as far as helping you get off the path of considering suicide as your end goal and helping you in putting you back on track. But that's pretty much it. That's been the suicide and suicide prevention podcast. I'm Lorenzo Walker from Com 250, and hope you enjoyed it.